On this episode of the Ask Mike Reinold Show, we talk about some advice on making a transition from inpatient or neuro or anything outside of our realm and back into orthopedics or sports medicine.
The Ask Mike Reinold Show. Helping people feel better, move better, and perform better.
Before we get to the podcast, I wanted to make sure you knew about my free online course on the Introduction to Performance Therapy and Training. If you want to learn how to get started optimizing and enhancing performance, this is the course for you. Head to mikereinold.com/performance to sign up today. Welcome back, everybody, to the latest episode of the Ask Mike Reinold Show. We are again at home, not at Champion PT and Performance up in Boston, Massachusetts, but we are at home around the Boston, Massachusetts area, other than Mike Spaduto still representing Champion. And we are here again, continuing to flatten the curve and self-distance ourselves to try to help with the situation that we're currently under. But the show must go on, and we are here answering your amazing questions. So if you have more and you want to ask them, head to mikereinold.com, click on that podcast link, and you can fill out the form to ask us questions. I'll do some quick intros today since we don't have any students because they were all sent home by their schools, rightfully so. I have Lisa Russell, Mike Scaduto, Dan Pope, and way down below, hi Lenny.
Hello. Am I like Peter Brady? Like it's a Brady punch reference.
You're the guy at the bottom. In the future, we need 9. We need 9 so we can just do the full Brady Bunch theme. But no, I don't know. I think these are going well. I think we're doing a good job with the questions, right? What do you guys think?
It's awesome.
All good.
Right?
I like it.
This might be easier in the future, to be honest with you.
We may never go back.
Let's see how the quality comes out, right? All right. Here's what I've got for a question today. I'll do the reading. So we have Tommy from Boston. I like it. So Tommy, whose question's probably irrelevant now because he's probably at home and not working, but we'll still answer it. Tommy says, I'm a newish grad PT looking for advice on shifting my area of practice. I'm an undergrad athletic trainer, but my last 3 years I've been working in inpatient and outpatient neuro. So he's working in the neuro aspect of our physical therapy field. But I'm looking to transition back to sports medicine and performance. What advice would you have for this transition? Question number 1. And do you think this is an instance where a year-long residency would be beneficial for more intense mentorship? People are still asking that question. That's funny. So interesting. So neuro, which is pretty good, right? And Lisa, you've got some experience with some of this stuff. Dan too, right? Didn't you work a little like inpatient at one point or something?
No, clinical affiliations, but I did see some neuro, my last outpatient clinic. So a little bit, but not much.
Maybe
that was me. I had my first job was acute care. I did that for like 8 months.
Nice. All right, good. So we've got some experience that went through this. So that's good. So let's talk about the transition first before we talk about like some advice on what to do, because I think that might answer the mentorship question. But I don't know, Len, you did, how long did you do acute care for?
Let's see, probably January through like October of my first job, but I did eventually get an outpatient job and work both jobs at the same time.
Oh, wow. And in
North Carolina.
I got to ask because I just know that you didn't have any personal interest in that. Was it you were just waiting for an opening in that clinic?
I was waiting for an opening, couldn't get a job. This was in 2003 and ended up working PRN, basically full-time PRN in acute care at Durham Regional Hospital down in Durham, North Carolina, and then got a job at Raleigh Orthopedics, but then worked both the weekends at Durham Regional and did my full time during the week at Raleigh Orthopedics outpatient. So
super interesting.
Moving to Birmingham,
super interesting.
It was interesting. It was a good combination of acute care to see. I did basically musculoskeletal acute care, so it was like hip replacements, knee replacements, and some strokes. But then I would freak out and just go back to the total joint floor and just. But it was good to see the total joint floor people come out of surgery and like back fusions and discectomies, and see where they progressed to after that when I was in outpatient. So it was a very good experience.
Nice. So when you made the transition back to outpatient, obviously I know you had a lot of interest in that, so I'm sure you're still paying attention to it and stuff. But what'd you do for to getting back into it, especially as a new grad? I think you're pretty close to a similar situation here. What'd you do to feel confident?
I worked in a facility that had a ton of experienced PT. So Raleigh Orthopedics in North Carolina had probably, I think we had 6 or 10 PTs with the doctors right above us. So I mean, I was freaking out as a new grad, right? I mean, I had no idea, even though I did an internship with you. I was down in Birmingham at Health South for my last internship, and you think you come out all powerful, and then you get your first like low back pain patient, your first post-op ACL, and you're like, like, what do I do? So I had a ton of PTs that I could learn from and get their advice and talk to them, and obviously use my knowledge that I kind of acquired. But when you're on your own, it's a completely different world, and you're trying to read protocols and trying to just not hurt the person and just make sure that they do well, and you don't like result in a stiff knee. I remember a stiff shoulder that I had. She had a rotator cuff repair, ironically, and she ended up getting a stiff shoulder, and I thought I was like the worst PT when I was down there, because like I could not get the shoulder to loosen up. But I don't know, it was having the experienced PTs, it was having the ability to read and get journals. And back then, I don't even, like 2003, this is going to date me, but like I don't even think there was a lot of online learning, right? So it's not like I could just take a course online. So you just take a course. I went to Kevin's course. He came to North Carolina. I took his course. That's how I actually got my job. But it was just trying to get Con Ed stuff any way I could. And then the company that I work for sent me to Con Ed course for low back type stuff. So it was, it was just trying to learn and just trying to pick those brains of those PTs. They were very helpful. I'm still friends with them, so very helpful.
I like that. So 2 big things I got from that stuff, Len. One was if you're going to make the transition and it's something you haven't done in a while, it's probably best to try to find a place where you can jump in and be surrounded by some other people with a variety of experiences, so you can have some kind of like built-in mentorships.
Yeah.
I think that's important. And then 2
very
is
valuable.
You got to have some self-discipline to learn, right? So like just start going to a bunch of journal articles, and now now there's no reason not to learn. You know what I mean? Like you can say, all right, ooh, this great course coming to my town in 3 months, but like that doesn't mean you just sit around for 3 months. I mean, you can sign up for a couple online courses in that time. So sweet. How about you, Lisa? I know, Lisa, you've had some experiences as well. I mean, it wasn't neuro though, right? What was your
I mean, I worked per diem anyway. I was at the Spalding Rehab Hospital in Charlestown. And I hopped between the neuro floor, or like the stroke floor, the spinal cord injury floor, the just like general orthopedic floor. I kind of did, a little bit of everything inpatient rehab wise. And I mean, that was like, I worked weekends for the first, 5 years. So like fairly regularly was in that setting.
Yeah. So I know when we started talking about you kind of joining us at Champion, one of the big things was you're like, oh man, I feel a little rusty, right? So what'd you do to not feel rusty? Because, and by the way, I like how that was, I phrased that. Did I just compliment myself? I think I did. But it's feeling rusty. It doesn't mean you are rusty. It's this like internal like self-doubt that you may have that you may be rusty. But what'd you do?
Well, so I mean, even before coming to Champion, I had like another outpatient ortho job. And then I just like hadn't been in that setting for a while, even before I came here. And, when I shifted over to that job, the like original ortho, I did a lot of online learning. I would watch a lot of MedBridge courses during my lunch breaks. I would, watched a lot of Lenny. And in the evenings, I read a ton, depending on who the patients were. I kind of did what Lenny was talking about. And then in getting ready to come on board at Champion, I feel like I've kind of constantly been trying to just keep up with stuff and learn more as I've sort of been ramping things up. And I mean, it's the first job I've had where I've actually had good peers and mentors to learn from. Otherwise, I've been like on my own. Like the ortho job I had before, we were in private treatment rooms. We didn't have like collaboration time. I was, pretty much isolated and not a good setting for anybody to work in.
Not preferred.
So, I mean, I essentially was like, first true post-clinical ortho, like totally by myself. So I depended on the online stuff and all of that. But then, I've definitely, the amount I've learned and how much more comfortable I feel with certain things, and just like the resources I feel like I have, and having good mentors around me is like a huge difference.
Right.
I don't think it really matters what background I had prior, like all of us have that ortho stuff somewhere in our brain. You had to learn it in school, you had a clinical of it in school or whatever. And it's not there anymore. It's just a matter of like what you're using all the time. I've had lots of things, even like patients I had on clinicals and whatever, pop back up into my head of like, oh yeah, with like this person who was like that, like I did this and this worked. And it's there. You just don't think about it until you have to use it.
Right.
So
especially too, remember this, this particular situation, we have an undergrad athletic trainer too. So, I mean, you've got a bunch of experience with, you got a bunch of experience here. I really, really think that we've all been in your shoes. We've all had some self-doubt on, if we're prepared and feeling ready for this next venture here. I personally don't think you need a year-long mentorship to be able to work and transition to the outpatient setting. I think that's a little excessive. Would you learn a lot? Yeah, absolutely. Would it be beneficial? Like, yeah, absolutely. Do you need it? No. I mean, I would say not at all. I don't think you need it at all. Everybody's got a little self-doubt going into a new setting like that. I think if you're a dedicated worker, right, and you can actually put some time in. So, Lisa's reading at night. She's going through things, which is really good. What I liked what Lisa said, which is pretty neat too, is it's not just like preparing for that transition, but once you get in there, you're going to find out like, oh, in this setting, I'm seeing a ton of shoulders and elbows, or I'm seeing a ton of knees and ankles, right? And then focus your learning on that and start there. And then you can kind of grow from there based on the setting that you're in, right? So that's the first thing I always say is when somebody's trying to like go into a new setting and you're trying to do that, is get in there, make sure you're surrounding yourself with good mentors and peers and stuff. That was like, I think, a big message we heard from multiple people, right? But then the first thing you do is you assess your situation is, okay, what am I seeing a lot of here? Because maybe you're affiliated with some surgeons in the building next door and they do a ton of knee surgeries, right? So you're seeing a ton of post-op knees. Figure out what you're going to see a lot of and then seek that knowledge out, right? Then when you get comfortable with that stuff, now you can almost take an audit of yourself and say like, all right, what do I not feel good at? Is it my evaluation skills, my manual therapy skills, my treatment design, my program system? Like, what do I not feel good at? And then seek out those little pieces, or joints, or sports. Like, oh, I don't feel comfortable with the knee. I don't feel comfortable with baseball players, whatever it may be. Like, seek that out. But that's kind of like next level stuff. So I think that's the best way to answer it in my mind is like, you got to work, right? This isn't just going to come naturally to you, but it's probably in your head, right? What do you got, Len?
What about his question about the residency thing? Should he do a residency?
Well, I kind of said I didn't think he needed it, but did anybody think he does need it? I mean,
everybody's situation is different, but to take a 50% pay cut, I don't know what your student loans are and all that, but you're probably going to make a little money during your residency. Yeah, it could be valuable information, but do you want to take that pay cut and have to move across the country and all that stuff? So I don't know. I think working with experienced PT or PTs in a facility is your residency.
Yeah. What do you got, Mike?
I don't want to turn it into like a doomsday podcast or anything like that, but it'll be very interesting to see what the physical therapy job market is like in 6 months to a year from now, and how residency programs are doing. And I don't necessarily know if we can guide people based on what's going on in the world right now. Because there's a lot of unknowns, but it'll definitely be interesting to see. And I think things will change within physical therapy with, more services going towards telehealth. And, maybe we haven't really put an emphasis on that in the past, but I think the market's going to change. There may be some companies that go out of business, and there may be a shortage of jobs. There may be a shortage of clinics. So I think there's a lot unknown. I think if I was trying to prepare for the next year, I'd probably want to go with try to take the simple route and try to eliminate complexity from my plan. And maybe taking a residency at this point is a little bit risky. I might want to find a job that I have good mentorship at a good company that is doing well, that can offer some, guidance to me. I think that may be a more secure route at this time.
Yeah, that's great advice, Mike, too. And I really like that too, because I guarantee you this well, I know the question came in through our form before the COVID kind of situation that we're in. So how about you, Dan? What do you think?
Well, I think the one thing that it was already partly talked about, but it's free and it's pretty easy in your spare time to just go to the clinic you want to work at or a very similar one and just see what they're doing there. When I first started, and I didn't have like a long stint at a neuro facility and then try to go over to orthopedics, but I didn't necessarily know if I was completely ready to be working in a sports-oriented facility. And I just actually spent a bunch of time at multiple different facilities, but the one I ultimately wanted to be at, just learning to see how other people treat, how do you handle these basic orthopedic problems, how do you handle these basic sports injuries that come through the door, see how they're doing it, start to get the juices flowing, like, okay, this person has this problem. Oh, I kind of remember that. How would I treat that? What's my plan look like? Okay, what do I develop? Okay, what'd you end up doing? Okay, what are you thinking? You can talk to the PT afterwards. And, generally you can just bring some coffee to the clinic and maybe bring you some donuts and they'd be super pumped to have you for the day. So that would be my very first step if I was making that transition.
I like that.
Good point. He works in inpatient, so maybe try to go to the outpatient aspect of that hospital and shadow some of the PTs, like after work or weekends or something like that, and try to get some experience.
Right. Nice. Awesome. So tons of good advice. I think it's going to come down to you, Tommy, right? It's going to have to come down to you putting the work in right here. But, going to do it like an intense residency type thing. Obviously there's some concerns maybe in this market with it right now, but that seems like, just, fear of the unknown. I don't think you necessarily need that. So hopefully that helped. If you have a question like this and we can help in any way, just head to MikeReinold.com and click on that podcast link and we'll hope to answer it on a future episode. Thank you. See you in the future.